As we know, Purim is one of the most special days of the entire year. So I wanted to just explain a little bit, al pi Kabbalah, al pi Side, according to the Ari'Zal, what is so special about Purim and why do we do the Avodas Hayom that we do. So first thing is, as you do in any mitzvah, of course the Avodas Hayom is Sur Meira V'asei Tov. You have to first get rid of all the bad and then you can do good. What is the bad? The bad is Amalek. Amalek's children coming from Agag was Haman, and Haman was the Mitzorer HaYehudim. He wanted everybody to be destroyed and killed. Of course, we know it is a din d'oraisa, there's a din of Pasha Zachar V'al Tishkach, and you know also that the word Zachar is Miloshen Zachrus, male, and Lo Tishkach is B'chinas Nekeva. So, as you know, Shasa Loisa says is Keneged Din. Nekeva is Keneged Din. Why? Because she's a Makabel, so she's always mitzamtzim everything that she's Makabel. And the Zachar is to remember. And that's a mitzvah saseh. Mitzvah saseh is from the right side, not from B'chinas HaChesed and not from B'chinas HaDin. We know also, why is there such a thing as Amalek? How does it practically lend itself that Amalek is something that we have to do every day? How many people have you killed this week that were Amalek? So we don't really have it in us to do that. It's a mitzvah. If you meet a Nazi in the street, are you going to kill him? We don't do it, even though it's a mitzvah. What's the pshat? So really, where is this mitzvah of Zachar V'al Tishkach of Amalek? So you have to say, like always we say, it has to be totally in your pnimius. What is Amalek's classic work? It's twofold. One is to show you that a person always thinks that grass grows by itself. Life is happening all on its own. I'm breathing because I'm healthy, no other reason. That's what we call Olam HaTeva. HaTeva is Gematria Shem Elokim, which is Midas Hadin. That is one of the main tools of Amalek that we want to show. We want to show that we know that everything that happens in this world, every blade of grass that grows, everything that there is all coming from Kodesh Brichu. There's no such thing as Teva without Yad Hashem in it. He makes life, He makes everything. The other midah of Amalek is Asher Karcha Baderech, that he believes that there is no such thing as coincidence. Or I should say, everything is coincidence. I met this guy in the street, coincidence, everything happens by chance, that's just the way it is, there's no master plan. Of course, that's the biggest apikursis, that's the midah of Amalek, to show that there is no Kodesh Brichu. He doesn't exist to them. Our avodah is to acknowledge that everything that we have and everything that we do is all Yad Hashem. And that's the inyan of Amalek, of Zachar. You have to remember to get rid of Amalek every day, because we also are nichshal in these taivas to say, it just happened, or grass grows on its own. We could also think that way. And chas v'sholom to say that, of course, everything that happens is Yad Hashem, and there is no such thing as coincidence. Just like there's no coincidence that you happen to be listening to this shira, or whatever it is that you're listening to it. No coincidence. Everything happened for a reason. We don't know cheshbainis, and we shouldn't think or fathom that we ever will know cheshbainis. However, life goes on. And Rabban Shalom is running every second of the world. So that's Zachar V'al Tishkach. What is the greatness of Purim over the rest of the year? So I have to go, I'm not going to go into the exact detail of all the spheres, but the main idea is that the normal way the Rabbeinu Shalom sends down a shefa to us here by Alma has to go through stages. The regular stages are in the spheres, and the spheres starting from Chachma or otherwise called Abba. It goes from Abba over to Ima. Ima is then giving it over to Das, and Das, which is a little bit lower, goes down either through Tfuna, or it's going to go straight down from Das into Tiferet, into Yesod, and then from Yesod it's going to be Mizdavig into Malchus. Then we have what we call a Zivug, Yesod, and Malchus. And then what we could do is, since we have that Zivug, Yesod, and Malchus, so we could do what's called Ma'ila Man, right? Aliyas Man, and the Malchus, which now is Zivug, can go back up, and it goes all the way up to Tachas Kisei HaKavod in Olam HaBriya. That is standard. What is special about Purim? Special about Purim is that this ha'ara coming from what we call Yesod Abba is going directly to the Malchus. We are bypassing the standard of going first to the Ima and then to the Zah. And we're getting it straight from Abba. Without going into more details, if you want more details, you have to call me privately. I'll give you all the details. But the main point is that everything that's all these great things that are happening on Purim is coming from Yesod Abba. And the Yesod Abba, since it's in the moichin, it's in the brains, which is the highest madrega that we could even think about, is Chachma. And Chachma, we could have Nisim Geluyim. The Nes of Purim was not Nisim Geluyim. The Nes of Purim was a Nes Al Pi Teva. So here you could see that what is Megillah is to be Megala the Hester. So the Rebbeinu Shalom was mastir panim by this Nes that happened by Megillah, because it's a Nes that could happen by coincidence. So therefore the Rebbeinu Shalom dafka used such a type of Nes as opposed to Kriyas Yamsuf, which was a Nes Shaloi Kederach HaTeva. This Nes was Kederach HaTeva, and he wanted us to see and to understand that even though it's Derech HaTeva, that the Rebbeinu Shalom is playing a hand in everything that happens. From when Bigson and Seresh heard over the dream, and everything that happened was the Rebbeinu Shalom made it happen. And the same thing, you have to take it into your own personal life to show you that everything that happens, the Rebbeinu Shalom initiated it. We don't know Cheshbonis, we don't know why. The koyach of Purim, that everything is coming from Yesod Abba, which is on the highest madrega, and through that we have so much more that we could accomplish and achieve. As a mashal for it, one of the mitzvahs of mitzvahs hayayim is called a paishut yad noisnin loy. Why? Because since we're coming from this high madrega called Abba, and up all the way up over there, there is no pchinas din. And what is din? If somebody comes to you, normally during the year, if somebody comes to you for tzedakah, you have to be baidik to see. You shouldn't be baltashkas, you have to see if it's a worthy cause. But since there's no din all the way high up by Abba, so kol ha'paishut yad noisen, because there's no din. Din is a tzimtzum. We're withholding. That's what din is. We're withholding a shefa. So if a guy's not right, we're allowed to withhold it. But if a guy is, we don't check on Purim because everything's coming from B'chinas Abba. Abba is in the highest madrega. Abba, we don't check. There is no din. Therefore, kol ha'paishut yad noisen and lie. And as everybody knows, that the same thing applies to tefillah as well. That kol ha'paishut yad, you go ask the Rebbeinu Shalom, you stick out your hand, kol ha'paishut yad is noisen and lie. So you see that the midah of Purim is on the highest madrega, higher than Shabbosos v'Yomim Tovim. There are other things that are coming into play. That was just one thing of Matanos LaEvyonim. Another reason that we give Matanos LaEvyonim, the Evyon is called a Isha, which is also called Malchus, which is also compared to a Levana. Just like the Levana has no light of its own, it gets all its light from a Shemesh, from the sun. It has no light of its own, so it's considered Dal. The Evyon has nothing of its own, or on Malchus is called the Les Megarma Klum. So too, the Malchus, the Isha, which over here we're talking about parts of Rachel, also has nothing of its own. Therefore, everything it has, it's coming from a higher place. Which is also why, since we Klal Yisrael are doimet to the Malchus, because the relationship will be a zivug between Kodesh Bricha, which would be in the Zah, and us, Klal Yisrael, which would be in the Malchus. Therefore, to have that zivug, we are called the Les Megarma Klum, And everything that we have, I'm emphasizing the point, is coming from Kodesh Brichu. There is no option on that. I want to jump a little bit. There's also the mitzvah of Mishlayach Manais. And just as a note, brought in from the Ari'Zal, the difference between Shlayach Manais and Matanais Le'Evyonim, because if you think about it, the word Manais and the word Matanais are really the same word, just Matanais has one extra tough. Now, what are we trying to say? That the extra tough in Matanais Le'Evyonim, tough is the last letter in the Aleph base, and that represents din. Why? Because that represents a boundary. Anything that's a boundary represents din. So the Matanais Le'Evyonim, since the Isha is called a Dal Ve'Evyon, because she has nothing of her own, she has to get everything from another place, from usually the Ish, right? Or the Ani who's getting it from the Ashir, right? So therefore, it has two tufts to represent the higher Madrega of the two tufts, to show you that it's much more of a Dalus and Aniyas. When you're giving Manos, you're giving the Mishlayach Manos, is only to create more of a Chavershaft between Klal Yisrael. The other thing that we know, everybody screams, Chayev Inish L'Vesumei, Adlo Yoda, that's the most fun part. So first of all, what does it mean Adlo Yoda? So we know that there's a Chazal that says, Noshim Daitam Kalos, Chas v'shalom, to think that they're not as smart because Noshim Daitam Kalos, it's when you're little kids, they're saying to each other, the boys are saying to the girls, that we're smarter than you because you're Noshim Kalos, Daitam Kalos. Chas v'shalom to say such a thing. The reason why on Purim we say such a thing, right, is because since we have directly from Abba going down to the Malchus, so therefore once we're having it direct, we're bypassing the Das. So the Das on Purim is Kal because we're not going through the normal channels of Das. And then the other thing is, why is there an Indian of saying Baruch Haman? Zok the Ari'Zal, that every klipa has a nitzis kedusha which gives it chiyas. What does it mean it gives it chiyas? A klipa has to have a life, has to have a chiyas, and the reason why do we have to have a klipa? Because if you don't have the klipa, then what's going to happen? You're going to not have bechira, because you won't have a taiva to do something wrong, and so you won't be mizgaber on the taiva. It'll be like la'asid lava, ya adam rishon koydem achet, there was no bechira, because they were kulei kodesh, and will be kulei kodesh. Therefore, there's no bechira, so then we won't have any inspiration not to do, to do a mitzvah or not to do an aveira, whatever it is, you're not going to have anything because you won't have any taiva for it. So the word of Baruch Haman, you're supposed to say Baruch Haman, it says the Ari'Zal, you're supposed to say it, but beloi kavana, that it should not happen. Because you need to feed it, so you mentioned the klipa, you call it Baruch Haman, but you don't want it to be Baruch, because if it's Baruch, then it'll get too much of a shefa. That's too much of a shefa, that'll be miskaber on that nitzitz kedusha that's hidden inside that klipa. Therefore we say Baruch Haman, but we say it beloi kavana. The last thing I want to mention, which is really the most important, so now that I know that all the koiches and all the shefa that's coming from Abba into Purim, into us, what do we do with it? Therefore what? It's been bothering me for a long time, and I just wanted to say that the pshat is that you have to make an awareness. You recognize the godless of Purim. You recognize where it's coming from. Once you recognize the greatness of it and you realize where it's coming from, you'll act accordingly, that everything you do will be l'shem shamayim and it'll be on the highest madrega. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that this is what it says, chayev inish l'vesumei. Why doesn't it say chayev inish l'shaker? Get drunk. Why l'vesumei? Besumei means it should smell like roses, like besamin, right? And so is that when a person gets drunk, is normally we say shikavi agoy. That's no good. We can't have that. But if you live a sumei, that a person's pnimius comes out, and his pnimius is malei Torah and chesed and all good to zachin, then once it's coming out like that, then That's taka a baisem, it's called like a besamim. You're making the Torah and the mitzvahs ha-Torah and the mitzvahs hayom smell good, but not like a shikara guy. On that note, we should all have a happy Purim, and mostly important is a high Purim, pun intended either way, high in ruchnius and high in being high.